a big show ahead of us, and I think it just started. We got the big freaking draft show today, so don't go anywhere. We will be right back, and we're going to break down all of. We're going to do a quick mock, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mile High Sports Symposium. I am JT Matthews at JTMatthews01 on X, and here with Dr. Nicholas Manning at DR_. On X as well. And we are joined today by friend of the pod, Chris Whitwright, CWhitwright at cwhitwright.bsky.social. I don't have those ones down yet, man. I gotta.
You just say Blue Sky, bro. Like you can just say the at Blue Sky. Like you don't have to type it in when you go to Blue Sky. It's just there's the rest of that in Twitter. We just don't see it.
It's true.
Anyway, I'm
It's true.
I'm gonna stop talking.
We have a big draft pod at a show. Whatever.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to let you keep saying it wrong. We have a big freaking draft show.
Big freaking draft show.
Thank you. You're a pro. I look up to you. You're like my hero. But if you're slipping, then I gotta catch you slipping.
That's fair. That's what this is why we are a thing. This is why we do this. We can handle this sort of constructive criticism, and I will take this and be better from it.
Why are mom and dad fighting?
You know, it happens everywhere. It's very calm fighting at the very least. Yeah. You know, not too much trauma involved. Chris, how are you, man? Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you.
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited to be on the big freaking draft show. Ready to talk some draft with y'all, and it'll be a good time.
Yeah, you got a bunch of draft nerds here today, and we love to deep dive. We're going to do a quick mock, just the first round. Maybe we're going to get to the Broncos, and then we're going to feel it out from there, depending on how the timing goes. And we want to talk about some of our guys that we really like in this draft class, and maybe we'll talk about some guys that we maybe think are a little overvalued. This is stuff that we didn't prep you for, Chris, so you better be ready. But just little things, you know, guys that maybe have slipped down your draft board a little bit, that have moved up your draft board for some reason or another, or maybe guys you just have seen recently that you're into. But lots of draft talk, Broncos centric, but you know, we're gonna pick for all the teams. So we're gonna talk about who we think are good fits where, and we're just excited to get started. Doc, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I am excited just to give some context about Chris and my relationship. I've known Chris since 2001. That's a long time.
Okay.
Joined the same fraternity, the kind of anti-fraternity, and Chris and I really connected because we would play Madden, and we would do like all of it, like all the simulation of the off season and stuff. And Chris was the first person I knew that also wanted to be in a sports administration in like the front office. So I got to watch him go through and get his useless sports admin master's degree, and recognizing that nepotism sucks. And like, damn it, I'm glad that he figured it out so I didn't have to. But I'm excited to have Chris on just because he's like lived and breathed it for as long as I have known him, and then probably before. But he's super knowledgeable, and we talk sidebar all the time, so it's nice to have him on. Killed it when we did a little Dallas Denver pre-show back when they played, and so super excited to have him on. And hopefully you all ask some good questions if you get a chance to, because my man's a savant. Like literally, he doesn't know anything else. He has to get like put instructions in his bathroom on like how to wipe, like for real, like struggles. However, when it comes to like the NFL draft stuff, front office-y stuff, my man's a faucet of knowledge. He drips.
Thanks, man.
Just dripping knowledge.
Dripping.
I don't know if I like that or not. Um,
I mean, it depends. You gotta be real careful.
yeah. There's definitely context that matters there.
Yeah. There's no way that could get out of context and people
Definitely
get grossed
not.
out by what I said.
The internet would never do such a thing.
No, it's where you go for truth.
Exactly. Well, you want to just jump right in? I don't think
Yeah.
we got. Oh no, wait, hold on. Before we jump in, I wanted to ask Chris. I'm seeing rumors of a Dak Prescott trade on social media. I know he's got a no trade clause. Is there any truth to any of this?
No. The James Slater, who works for the Athletic, debunked the rumor almost immediately.
Okay.
Like you said, Dak's got a no trade clause. I don't think, and even from like the Cleveland Browns standpoint, I mean, they have so much money tied up in Deshaun Watson that taking on Deshaun Watson and Dak Prescott's contract would be
$1 million.
Yeah,
two guys.
And plus,
was he able to debunk that? Was he able to debunk that by being added to a group chat?
Yes. Yes. Turns out the
Athletic, their reporters are good at infiltrating the group chats, so I trust that. That's chestnut checkers, baby.
That's right. Okay. Well, I wanted to double check. I assumed that such a thing, but I did not have to do research, and I knew that you would know. So, thank you.
Is Micah Parsons going to get signed this offseason, or are they going to drag it out?
I hope so, but the Joneses have shown a propensity to wait to the very, very last minute to do anything. Especially
let's wait till the market is reset again.
Yeah, until it gets set 3 or 4 times, and they end up paying more money.
So much for keeping up with the Joneses.
Right.
They themselves just have to keep up.
Right.
You got to keep up with the rest of the league.
Yeah. Appreciate you, dog. All right. So just for the folks, tee it up a little bit, we're going to use the Pro Football Network draft simulator. One, we like it. It's also, I think, easier to digest for this purpose. So if you all don't like it, one, let us know what you use. Two, shh. It's our show.
Oh, I forgot. I need to ask you, are we doing a predictive mock? This is one thing we didn't talk about. Do we do predictive, or do we want to do like who we would pick?
I don't. I would rather do like what we think because we're smarter than them anyway.
Okay, perfect.
That's my opinion. You know what I'm saying?
All right. So not predictive.
I do have a correction. James Slater works for NFL Network, not the.
Then he was added to the chat for sure. Then
yes,
sure. Roger was like, "Hey, you guys got to add him. You know, you got to make sure that one of you Jones is actually awake during the meeting." And just kidding. All right, gents. So
all right.
into the draft, which is less than 1 month away.
So good.
Another week. So it is for real draft season. Hard Z right there. So we're going to start with your nobody. Like, I have never met a Tennessee Titans fan. So
yeah, me neither.
The Tennessee Titans up with the first pick. It really sounds not only from their camp, but from the process that I've gained on it, as well as people that know what they're doing and the insiders of the game. It's Cam Ward or it's not. Do either of you have a rebuttal? Not saying he's the best player that should go number one, but if it were me, you're drafting number one. I think you take a shot at a quarterback. That's just
nope.
Yeah,
no disagreement. Just as a tidbit, the Titans sent most of their coaching staff and front office to do a private workout with Cam Ward yesterday. So locked in.
I think it's pretty locked as well. I mean, they don't have a quarterback. They just don't. Will Levis is not it. It's not. He's not. It doesn't even feel like there's much of a point in running it back with him. To be honest, he was that bad. So I think
he's meme bad. He is meme bad. You know you're terrible when.
Yeah.
Each game you produce like an internet sensation, and none of it is good. Like none of those were like balled out play. Like, oh, it's so cold. It's like that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. Embarrassing. Sure. So I concur. The Will Levis experience. We knew that when he was eating, bananas and dipping them in mayo and stuff. Like, hard pass, dog. All right. So Cam Ward, you are a Tennessee Titan.
Easy enough.
Dun, dun, dun. All right. The Cleveland Browns, one of the best ran organizations in spy case. That's terrible. Cleveland Browns. I'm gonna let you start Chris, what your thought process is if you are GM of the Browns, knowing what you know, where would you go?
So I believe that Adam Schefter reported a couple months ago that the Browns were in love with Cam Ward. Obviously, Cam Ward is off the board now, but they weren't in love with Shadur Sanders. So I don't think quarterback is going to be the pick here. I think they're going to go the best player available, which is Travis Hunter. I think he's the best player in the draft. I think he's the number one on a lot of people's boards. So Travis Hunter for me is the best player. So that would be who I would go with. So plus, as previously mentioned, they have a lot of money already tied up in Deshaun Watson. So I think they're going to ride that until the rails come off. And not that they haven't already.
Right. The rails have already come off. I am fine with that. I really am intrigued by Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett, just kind of on opposite sides. But I understand that, you bring Myles Garrett, you're probably not, you're definitely not drafting for need if that's your pick. Just kind of depends on how you feel about Abdul Carter, whether you think he's kind of a generational guy or not. I think Travis Hunter is. I think he's a receiver, though. He's obviously both. But, if I had to pick him at a position, pick him at receiver, the Browns receiver makes sense to me, and they could flip him and play him on the other side of the ball if they need to. So I could go either way, but I'm fine with Travis Hunter for sure.
That's actually funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I really like Abdul Carter. I like Abdul Carter. Yeah.
I'm sorry. The Andrew Berry at the Combine, the GM for the Cleveland Browns, also said that they view Travis Hunter primarily as a receiver, and I don't see a lot of people doing that. Or I haven't seen a lot of people say totally receiver, and that's where we're going to stick that primarily. So interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. That's interesting. I've heard that more, actually. Just bang for buck, right? Like, where are you going to make your money at? And so I also really like the Abdul Carter. One, I think if you have a dynamic pass rush, you're going to be pretty set. The secondary wasn't too bad in Cleveland. You got Newsome, you got Denzel Ward at corner. So I think that they would talk themselves out of it and say, hey, you know what? We need to go get Abdul Carter. And I think that would be just fine. That said, I think Travis Hunter is the best player in the draft. In my opinion, the best player that we've seen in a while. When you look at totality, is like, how much can this guy help your team? He can be a 30-snap offensive player while also, I think, playing the majority of snaps on defense. I see no reason why he couldn't return kicks if you needed him to with his creativity and ball skills. So I would draft, if this is me, and I don't need a quarterback because I believe in positional importance, I would take Travis Hunter. I think I'd rather bring in that guy, not be sure how to use him. You're probably going to fire Stefanski anyway. It's literally a generational player. We've never seen anyone do what he's doing to the degree that he's doing it since players really focus on one side of the ball. I don't know that we will again. There's a difference between like playing, right? Like getting a handoff like Miles Jack and knowing the route tree, being able to separate, winning the Biletnikoff while you are still one of the best defensive backs in the nation. So he's elite at two positions. I don't know when you'll ever see that again.
I agree.
It's a rare thing for sure. And I think the only thing I would count.
We're good for the unicorn with Cleveland?
Yeah. I'm good with that. I wonder if maybe there will be a play for Shadur at some point, though. I don't know. They don't have a quarterback. They just don't right now. I mean, if you think Deshaun Watson playable, that's fine. I guess you just roll for another year, but you don't have a quarterback. So I wonder if the play will be just further down in the draft for a quarterback, or maybe like a Jackson Dart or someone like that, in a second round, or would be willing to trade back up in the first round to grab one. But I think you got to take the best player.
Or their early second round pick. Yeah, the early second round pick. Maybe you add that with another day 2 and a next year's day 2 to move into the 20s or something for Shadur, which Cleveland's done. They did Brand Whedon. They did with Johnny Manziel. So it's a different regime, but they've done it before. I would agree. Like, you take quarterbacks as much as possible. I just don't think they will. And with knowing that, I think Travis Hunter by far is the best player.
Yep.
So with that, we're going to move to another fantastic organization with top-notch coaching. Is the New York Don't Call Russell Wilson Giants. So talk about who knows what they're doing. They don't even know what they're doing.
I
New
don't know
York
what they're
Giants. So JT, why don't you kick it off? What would you do?
It's a tough one, man. I mean, I think obviously you just probably at this point you take Abdul Carter and just line them up and you have them locked in for a while and just let them go terrorize quarterbacks. It's not necessarily a position of need, but you can't have too many good pass rushers. So I would probably go that route. I don't know. This is maybe you might see them trade out. You might see them. I don't know if they would take a chance on a Shedeur so soon. I mean, Russell Wilson's only signed for a year, so it's possible that they just need a stopgap for a year. They brought in Jameis Winston to back up whomever that was going to be at the starting position. So maybe they would take Shedeur, but I would probably still go with best player available unless someone's really going to overpay to move up. Then maybe you'd move down a little bit, but I think Abdul Carter's the pick.
Yeah, I'm of two minds of this. So when I was prepping for this, Russell Wilson had not been a Giant yet.
Right.
Signed yesterday, for those of you that missed it. So now they have Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Tommy DeVito all under contract. So, however, they have been linked with Shedeur Sanders since the beginning. So it still wouldn't surprise me if they did.
By beginning, like the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like laying it down, like not just the beginning of the off season. I mean, into the season, aka wearing Giants cleats after hanging out with Malik Neighbors at a game in Madison Square Garden.
Exactly. So the problem is that if the Giants season goes south, start 1-4, 2-6, Brian Dable and Joe Sheehan are not going to be there to enjoy what Shedeur Sanders could be. So they're not. So my mind is in two places where, yes, Abdul Carter puts the best team on the field, so you have more of a chance of winning in the immediate, but they still don't have their quarterback of the future in Shedeur Sanders. So I think I'm still going to draft Shedeur Sanders here because they still don't have a long-term answered quarterback. So to me, Shedeur Sanders, this is where I would pick him, but I do understand the Abdul Carter love.
Yeah, I would agree. I would go Shedeur. I think when you got Kayvon Thibodeau, who started to come on, and you got Brian Burns, Abdul Carter isn't necessarily I think a slam dunk improvement or significant improvement over those guys. Probably will be or could be, all that good stuff. But both of those guys have shown that they can play in the league, and Brian Burns has shown that he is really good and consistent for the most part. Go Florida State. So I do think they take a swing. I think having a 1-year deal for Jameis and a 1-year deal for Russ and Tommy DeVito doesn't preclude me from doing jack. So I think Shedeur goes here. I think if the Giants don't take Shedeur Sanders, I would take the under of 10 games of how long this coaching staff, and at least if Shedeur's clicking and you're 5-12, but it looks like it's going to work, you're, especially Daboll bringing an offensive coach, you might buy yourself some leash. If Russell Wilson looks like he did for the last 6 games in Pittsburgh, you for sure ain't keeping your job. So that's my take. So looks like the Yays have it. Shedeur Sanders going. You are a New York Giant. Do the Shedeur.
I like.
All right, team that no one cares about.
2 buffs in the top 3, by the way.
Yeah, I love it.
That's pretty dope.
Love it.
It's pretty dope. It's pretty. Yeah, it's been a long time. Don't know if it'll come back again, but started from the bottom. Now they're here. All right.
Yep.
So with that, like I said, a team that nobody has interest in, the Patriots. So a ton of moves this offseason. I liked some of them. It's one of those, I think they spent money because they had money. outside of Williams, defensive tackle bringing in. They got some good players, but obviously when you build your team through free agency, you're going to overspend.
Yep.
Drake May looked like he has some chops. Way to kind of buck that Tar Heel legacy and be capable. So with that, floor is open. I would go best player in the draft that's left. I would go Abdul Carter. They have some pretty good defensive pieces, but to be honest, nobody that would be at that level. I also think Mason Graham would be a fit for the team, like in the culture. I think it's tough. Mike Vrabel, who I think is a phenomenal coach, getting a excellent in the trenches player, I think could go a long way. I think the argument could be made too for Will Campbell or Armand Membu, who are both really good offensive linemen. They need more, or Drake May is going to struggle. So, but with that, my vote would be Abdul Carter. I think he's a gosh darn freak in nature, and you can't just create those kind of guys.
Yeah, so,
Chris.
I 100% agree. Like PFF rated them the worst offensive line in football last year, so they need help on the offensive line. Here's the thing. This is the spot where I believe somebody who trades up to go get.
I think so too.
So because, and I also think that the Patriots would be amenable to that, because if they trade down a couple spots, they could go grab an offensive lineman and be well on their way to improving their football team and picking up extra assets. So I think this is the spot where I think if somebody like the Bears wanted to come up and go grab an Ashton Genty, or somebody wants to come up and grab Abdul Carter, this is the spot where that would happen, is my opinion. So that said, if they stay packed, I think I'm going to Abdul Carter. I don't think you can have enough pass rushers. So just get another one. The only question with Abdul Carter is he has a potential stress fracture in his foot. So just something to think about. I don't know if the doctors check him out, all good. So Abdul Carter's my pick.
Yeah, I mean, are you gonna field some trade offers and see what's there? Or do you just want to make the pick? Because I think Abdul Carter's the pick too. I'm tempted with Mason Graham just because
since we selected everybody, it won't just send them to us. So,
okay.
Because we essentially are running all of the 32 teams, so we could. I mean, we can. In the end, we are the bosses of. So maybe if either of you has an idea, trade back, or I can pull up the value chart, all that good stuff. If not, we can just go pick by pick.
Let's just go. Abdul Carter is my.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too. I think you could probably make something happen with Carolina if you really wanted to, or the Bears, or maybe even the Saints. But for simplicity's sake, let's go Abdul Carter, because I think he's the best player available, and I think that he's valuable regardless of where he goes.
So
cool, done and done. Now up, Blake Bortles, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who crashed back to earth. Got a new regime in there, and really kind of outside of, I guess, Trevor Lawrence, because he's not awful. Brian Thomas, Josh Hines Allen, maybe. I mean, they have some good pieces, but I think a clear reassessment of what their strengths are needed. But JT, where would you be taking a look-sees if you were the GM for the Jacks?
I have a few different trains of thought on this. I wonder if maybe they would go Ginty. I think Travis Etienne I think he's on the last year of his deal. I think he is. Who knows what he is anymore? He didn't have a great season last year. He's hurt. And you like Tank Bigsby, but I don't think you like him as a 3-down back. And so I think if you're looking for bang for your buck, maybe Genty's the move. McMillan would be great, opposite of Brian Thomas Jr. So potentially you just want to stack that wide receiver room a little bit more. I like both of those options. I like Mason Graham too. I'm a little lower, I think, Mason Graham, than a lot of folks. Not. I think he's a first round pick. I don't know that I would take 5 if it were up to me, but so I mean, those are the 3 I'm definitely looking at though. If I'm guessing what they might do, if it were me, I'd just go Genty though.
For me, I actually am taking Mason Graham.
All right, let me go, Chris, and then I'm going to let you be the tiebreaker.
Fine.
No, you just said Mason Graham.
But
yeah. So I'm going to give that, and then Chris, since you are going to be the tiebreaker anyway, I would go Tetairoa McMillan because I think you can draft a running back this year to start. You still have ETN and Tank Big, like that's an okay duo. You don't even have to draft a running back this year, but I think you can grab some later. Their receiving core, as of currently constructed, Brian Thomas Jr., yep, stud. Joshua Cephas, who
nice.
is not good. Gabe Davis, who is not great. Parker Washington, Diami Brown, Austin Trammell, and David White Jr. So if I'm Trevor Lawrence, who like their moms don't even know who they are, let alone me so I would go with I think the best receiving threat outside of Travis Hunter in the draft, and I would go Tetairoa McMillan.
All right. Well, I think I've already spoiled it. I'm going with Mason Graham. The reasons for it is I think a lot of your reasoning makes sense. Again, ETN was hurt last year. You don't know if he's on the last year of his deal. Don't know what you have there. Wide receiver core. They shipped out Christian Kirk and Zay Jones in the last couple of years, so you got to rebuild that. And I'm sure Trevor Lawrence is like, hey, I need some help on here, especially when you hired an offensive coach. It makes sense. The new GM, James Gladstone, who is 32, by the way, and it makes me just sad. He came from the Rams.
What are you doing with your life?
I know, right? The talking with you guys.
Yeah.
James Gladstone came from the Rams, and the last draft, they went defensive line, and saw a resurgence in there. So I think they're going to go defensive line. I think it's Mason Graham, and that is my pick, and that is the reasoning.
That is the pick. Then I think we go Mason Graham.
Yeah, that's yep.
And I don't think
about it. So if that's at all. I think it's a good pick too in terms of like strength on strength, right? So if you had Mason Graham to Mason Smith, who they got last year, Devon Hamilton, who's a pretty good player, then you have Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines Allen. You bring in Mason Graham. That's a really good, front mix. Plus you got Devin Lloyd, and the front seven. I think for this group is super strong. So if it's one of those where it's, hey, you know what? Let's make sure we don't suck in everything. Like front seven is a really good place to hang your hat. So I like Mason Graham. I think he's gritty. I think he's super strong and refined. So I'm game with that. And then you got to tell Trevor, hey, we pay you a lot of money. We can't give you top 10 receivers all the time. So I think it's fair, rebuttal, and accept your proposed pick. Now to the Las Vegas Raiders. JT.
Well, I mean, I think probably the most popular is Genty, or I'm seeing maybe more often. But with McMillan there, I think that's a possibility. This team just has a lot of needs, and so I think you can't go wrong. I'm still pretty high on Will Johnson. I would consider him here potentially too. But I would say for the second time in a row, probably Genty.
Yeah, I'm again. That's a blinking red light for me.
Well, that's just pulling up the depth chart.
So I think the running backs were not good last year. It was a rotating kind of mess with that. I think Pete Carroll comes in, and I think he sees Marshawn Lynch and Ashton Genty. So let's roll.
Yeah.
So
for as much as I don't want that to be the pick, so that the Broncos don't have to play him for the next decade. I think with Pete Carroll being a defensive-minded coach, we got Geno, hand the ball off a ton, and because in the end, like outside of Brock Bowers, they have like no offensive weapons. Raheem Mozart is a quality player. He gets hurt all the time. So if you're banking on that being the leader of your run game, like you said, Chris, which was shambles last year, you expect Gino to at least be able to make some guys functional. Jacoby Myers, I think, is a better player than he gets credit for. I like Trey Tucker. And then they have a bunch of dudes, but I expect them to go offense pretty heavy in this draft, which is they need all of it. So God knows where they're going to go. But I reluctantly agree that I think Genty for them is where are they going to score points from when you look at it right now and they don't have anyone? Yeah. Take the best offensive playmaker on the board, and that would be Ashton Genty.
Yeah, also this draft is also fairly deep at wide receiver. I think in that second, third round, I think you've got a glut of receivers that's pretty good and can at least be an improvement over Jacoby Myers and what they already have. So,
all right, Genty, it is.
Yep. It's receivers have been easier to get year after year. Next up, we got the Nathaniel Hackett's Jets team. Even though he's not there, I know. But I'll go ahead and kick this one off. I think if it were me, I would go offensive line. I think they're defensive. I think on defense, they don't have a ton of issues for me. I think playmakers, they have some pretty good players. You got Breece Hall, you got Garrett Wilson. I think even Jeremy Ruckert, right, at tight end, third round pick from yesteryear. Your quarterbacks get in the face too much. And so I would take Membu. I like Will Campbell. He did measure today at his pro day, arms at 33 inches, so not all the way to 34 mark, but he still is kind of more of a shorter, stubbier guy. And so I think they look pretty good in the interior offensive line. I think being able to add another bookend corner to go with Fashanu would be it. And I think Membu did it against the best competition in the best conference, and not only held his own, but I think he's pretty dominant and still relatively young. I think he's 21, if I recall. So a younger guy. So that would be my vote. That's my case. I'll kick it around to you, Chris.
That sounds good to me. Another note, they lost Morgan Moses, their right tackle, to the Patriots in free agency, and Tyron Smith has not been retained as of yet. So they got a glaring hole at offensive tackle. So pairing Membu with Fashanu would be a good start. Kind of a wild card, Tyler Warren. I don't know if he goes this high, but that's interesting because their tight end room is bad. Yep. So they lost Tyler Conklin to the Chargers. That tight end room is bad. So something to look at.
Yeah,
yep.
I think I'd go Membu first. I obviously I think he's a guy that is going to play a lot. Play for a lot of for some team. We'll see who. But I think ultimately you just need that right tackle and someone who's got athletic gifts and Membu that guy. So I think we should lock that in.
Sounds good.
Bam. All right. Carolina, you are up. Do you want to kick us off, Chris?
Yeah. So I am going, since I don't know everything about the Panthers, I'm going to defer to Natalie Miller at Nat_NFL Draft on Twitter. She is a wonderful follow if you're interested in NFL draft stuff. So shout out Natalie. Natalie seems to think that Michael Williams or Ted McMillan are going to be the pick here. They've narrowed it down to kind of two prospects. So they definitely need some edge help. Again, continuing to help Bryce Young would be a good thing. So I'm actually leaning more towards Michael Williams than I am Ted McMillan. But again, I think either one would be great. So I'll hear both.
Yeah. What? Give me your feel on Michael Williams, because I think he's kind of a polarizing guy. I think he's obviously great in the run game. I think that he has struggled, or maybe his sack numbers are not as high as some of the other guys in the draft. Do you feel like he's got high upside potential?
Yes, I think you nailed him. I think he's a really good run player right now, and I think he's still figuring out the pass blocking or the pass rushing I should say, aspect to his game, and I think that needs to be developed. But he's real young, and there is clips at him of when he bull rushes is a dominant bull rush. So Michael Williams, I think, is probably going to be the pick here. Personally, I'm taking Mike Green over a lot of these edge rushers, but again, Natalie seems to know a lot about the Panthers, so I'm going to defer to her expertise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in that. I like Michael Williams. He is going to be probably a little bit more of a project in the pass rush game, but I think you can stick him in there to be serviceable, and he's going to make plays in the run game. And you're really not going to lose anything by rolling him out there and letting him kind of learn on the job. So I wasn't necessarily considering him this high, but I like it. And if that's a good source, then I can't argue that. I'm fine with that. I like that better than Tat.
All right. Well, you know what? I'm locking it in. Let's get moving. Don't need to say what's already been said. Nice job, boys. So New Orleans Saints, you are on the clock. JT, hit it.
I'm probably gonna go McMillan here. He just Olave got lit up last year multiple times. He's got to have some sort of counterpart in this offense. Yeah, when you know where the ball is going to go the majority of the time, and you have kind of a more slight receiver, he's going to take some hits. And you need kind of an insurance policy in case for some reason he's unable to stay healthy. Tet, I think, is falling down a lot of guys' draft boards. I think he's still the best receiver in the draft, even though he may have come a little bit closer to the pack. But he's a great jump ball receiver. He can get some separation. He's a decent route runner. It's not like he has these huge deficiencies in his game that some are kind of backpedaling on for some reason. It may just be a fatigue thing, but I think that McMillan's the best receiver in the draft. So that's the route I would go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's interesting about the Saints is I kind of
bringing Juwan Johnson back. I think there's that.
No, just two quick tidbits about the Saints because I completely agree with what JT said. I think Tedero McMillan right here is a wonderful pick. I think he's by far the best wide receiver in the draft for all the reasons you already mentioned. Two tidbits about the Saints, though. In Kuiper's last mock draft, he had them picking Jackson Dart in the first round, which is interesting. So I don't see Jackson Dart as a first-round player or even maybe a second-round player. But I think it's interesting that Kuiper that they were interested in a quarterback. So if for whatever reason Shadur Sanders slides, the Saints might be an interesting landing spot for him.
Be fun.
So
that's good.
Yeah. The second note that I had is they brought in Ravel, who's the corner from East Carolina. Big, long, lanky, fast receiver. Has an ACL injury that he suffered in September. But they brought him in for a 30 visit. So I think they're looking at corners. So it would make sense to say Ravel or maybe a Will Johnson here. But I'm all in on Tet McMillan. So
I think with that, though, I think Tet would be who I would want to pick if I were, just because I think he's a freak. But having Will Johnson, I mean, they did get rid of Marshawn Lattimore. Isaac Yadam right now is slotted to be a starting corner. Yep, yeah. You've heard it. Isaac. So, and really the depth behind it, it's not great, Bob. So you did get Kool-Aid McKinstry last year in the second round, but having two corners isn't enough, right? It's a matchup league. I actually, now that we're kind of here, I would swing to a Will Johnson, and I would swing to him first because I think he's a better player. But taking that note of having, having some real interest in corner, I would vote Will Johnson if it were me.
Okay, I think you got voted, so we're going to chat.
Yeah, okay, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
I still got to be true to myself, boys.
That's fair.
All right, Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears. What are we feeling? They need a lot. They did revamp their offensive line, so Nice job there.
Yep, they
in
traded
bringing
for
some
Joe
internal
Tooney
folks.
and
I
Jonah
would take a
Jackson.
look at Kelvin Banks. So I think the inside looks good. Braxton Jones, slotted or left tackle. I think he's been a quasi serviceable, but if you're trying to kind of create that picture, so right now I think from left guard to right tackle, it's not too bad. Bringing in a Kelvin Banks or a Will Campbell, I think would be it. For some reason, the Kelvin Banks stock has continued to kind of mid or drop. I think people are either you really like him or you don't. There's not very much gray. So I would go Will Campbell. I think his game is pretty solid, though some measurements might be the guys put good tape on in the best conference for the last 3 years. So my vote would be Will Campbell.
Yeah, Will Campbell started as a freshman, so again, he's definitely got a lot of experience there. My opinion is I like Josh Simmons out of Ohio State better than Kelvin Banks, and better than Will Campbell. Second best tackle in this class for me. Josh Simmons, for what it's worth, super athletic. I don't think he has any questions. Has played left tackle at a high level for Ohio State. Again, has an injury that needs to be cleared up if you're willing to take him. But again, the tape is really good on Josh Simmons. He's a fun watch. But yeah, I mean, Kelvin Banks, I think a lot of teams see him more as a guard than a tackle. Again, I'm okay taking Will Campbell here to beef up the offensive line. So,
yeah. I think that they would probably go Will Campbell. I think there's still questions about the injury recovery, what he's going to be, what Simmons is going to be able to bring. So I think, top 10 pick, I think you're trying to get someone that you can plug in right away and play. And so that's the only reason I would maybe go for Will Campbell. But I love Simmons, obviously, Ohio State guy. So love the Simmons praise.
Yeah. So yeah, Will Campbell. Let's take him.
Campbell will come on down. All right, San Francisco. The toll rang due for this team. So, Chris, where would you go?
Well, I mean, this is another one that I think is a complete wild card in the first round. I think if there's somebody looking to bail, I think it's going to be the Niners as well. 17 players left in free agency. That is a lot of stuff to replace in one offseason. So, and I don't think they're going to be able to do it with just this first round pick. They need offensive line help with Trent Williams is 37, still great player, but again, still need help there. Defensive line, they lost Hargrave. They lost a couple other players there. So I think in the trenches is where you're going to build. So I think this is a Kelvin Banks, Josh Simmons pick right here would be my thought. We could get crazy and go with like Kenneth Grant because they need that nose tackle. Like Kenneth Grant a lot. Also, kind of just a sneaky need. I think that running back room is an interesting place that's going to need addressing in this draft. So with Christian McCaffrey not being the healthiest guy and Isaac Guerrero being okay, but maybe not the answer that you were looking for. So, and they traded Jordan Mason in the offseason to the Vikings. So just as a thought, but I would stick with offensive line. Kelvin Banks would be the pick here for me.
Okay.
If not Josh Simmons. So, because I'm
I was going to go with Simmons because just because they can be a slightly more patient with a prospect, and if you think Simmons is the best guy, then I think that you take him regardless of the injury. So I would probably lean Simmons. I'd be fine with Banks. I like Banks too, but I have Simmons rated higher than Banks personally. A tiebreaker, Doc.
Let's go Simmons. You both like him more?
I like Josh Simmons myself more than Kelvin Banks, so I'm completely okay with that.
All right. Josh, limp your butt down. You are now a 49er. All right. I'm not going to say anything. Yeah, next up we have Cowboys.
I don't even think we're not going
to live out a dream.
This is so for all of the listeners and viewers out there, I'm a huge Dallas Cowboys fan, originally from Dallas, Texas. So I followed this team very closely, and they make me sad a lot. They have a multitude of different needs that need to be addressing. And while I think running back is like a popular thing to point to and say we need a running back, even though we signed Javonte Williams, who is familiar to Broncos fans, and Miles Sanders, that's certainly not enough for a running back room. They unfortunately lost Zach Martin in the offseason. He retired. Travion Diggs had ACL surgery in January. He's not going to be ready. So I think this is where Will Johnson goes. I think Will Johnson is the pick here. I think we have so many needs, and I don't think they've addressed them very well in free agency. So Will Johnson, I think, come on down. You're going to be a Cowboy. So
love it.
Okay. Yeah.
And lock it in. I like Will Johnson a lot, and I think you can say that, but I think he's the best player in the draft. So
the only thing I will say about Will Johnson is that there is a concern about his speed, and he's not run a 40 yet. So we don't know really kind of how fast he is. And I think he fits better in a zone scheme than a man scheme, so he doesn't have to play fast, but just as I thought. It's still really good instinctual corner. Again, another fun watch to if you're looking for some tape on him.
For sure.
All right. Our favorite head coach in the NFL, Colorado's own, Mike McDaniel, and the Miami Dolphins. JT, kick it up, baby.
Yeah, this one's to they just play such like a fast style of play on both sides of the ball. I think that you've got to find someone who fits your scheme. I don't know. I'm struggling with this one a little bit. Obviously, your top tackles are off the board. Maybe you would go Kelvin Banks just to have. Especially if you're gonna throw him inside, he could probably fit in there. I'm interested to see what Jahdae Barron is at the next level. I'm not exactly sure what he's gonna be, and maybe a slot guy. But I think he's valuable and he's a great athlete. So I would maybe look at Jahdae Barron here. Probably that would be my instinct is to go Jahdae Barron.
Yeah, I would go Barron or Ravel here. I think you can make a case for Nick Emenwari. I think or Malachi Starks. They're losing Javon Holland, etc. Their secondary is by far the biggest eyesore that I would go. I agree with our friends over at Kodiak Broncos podcast. Kodiak. So I would go Barron. I think he's one, a Swiss Army knife. You don't have to overthink. He's going to be one of your best secondary players, regardless of what position you put him in from day one. So to me, I think he's extremely safe and necessary addition for the Miami Dolphins.
You're not going to get an argument out of me. I love Jahdae Barron. I think he's that Swiss Army knife that Javon Holland is. You're missing now with Holland moving on. Teron Armstead, their tackle, is also contemplating retirement, so that offensive line is kind of a mess. So, but again, I don't know that they're going to be willing to. I think they're really sad that Josh Simmons and Will Campbell have gone off the board, and
I agree.
So, but yeah,
I agree. Yeah, maybe they go Banks, but I think unless right now, at least on paper, their offensive, their first five look serviceable. In the secondary, it's like outside of Jalen Ramsey, like who?
Yeah.
Why? What? So, all right. Looks like we're locking it in. You are a Dolphin. Good for you. No say text. We have the Indianapolis haven't done anything in this league since Andrew Luck left. Colts. I'm going to kick it off a little bit. I do like some of their offseason additions. I like Cam Byram, Shadavius Ford in their secondary with Kenny Moore, Nick Cross, and Jalen Jones. I like really kind of what they got going on defense. I think their offense can continue to improve. I really hate that I'm going to say this, but if Tyler Warren gets past the Colts, Yeah, like that's kind of the, if I'm the Broncos, I'm hopping on the phone, probably even with the Dolphins at 13, but definitely the Falcons, if he were to fall past, their tight end room right now is pretty sad. And regardless of who their quarterback is, Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, I think Tyler Warren is the best playmaker right now. And I think he's a plug and play day one. Your offense, got a piece. I think adding a receiver could be. Josh Downs has been a pretty good player. Pittman is a pretty good player. Alec Pierce is a pretty good player. So I don't even know if you're going to get a guy that's going to crack your first three-man rotation. But tight end, he is instantly going to be the best player in that room.
Yeah, no disagreement there. Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson quarterback room is rough.
It's rough.
But Field
Yates
Yates
Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston bed.
Right. Field Yates had the stat of the this early year. He tweeted out that the Indianapolis tight ends have not reached 500 yards receiving since 2018. Ugly. So yeah, give me Tyler Warren all day.
Damn.
Take Warren. I would take Loveland personally. I think Loveland's the better playmaker on offense. However, I think the versatility that Warren gives you is nice. You can line him up all over the place. You can expect him to block. I don't think you can necessarily expect great blocking from Loveland down the field. But I just think in that offense, Loveland would be a lot of fun. Just kind of running through the steam. But I have no issues with Tyler Warren being the pick.
Yep.
All right. So then with it, we have the Atlanta Falcons. Chris, why don't you kick us off? What do we got?
This is another interesting stat that I saw on NFL.com the other day. So since 2019, every team has at least 198 sacks, except for one, and that would be the Atlanta Falcons with 169.
Wow.
That is gross. They have not been able to figure out their edge play and have not been able to get any kind of pass rush, so they need to figure that out for sure. For me, this is Mike Green all day, every day. I like him way better than a lot of the edges in this class, better than a James Pierce, better than a Michael Williams. Mike Green, super productive in his senior year, got 17 sacks, led FBS, knows how to rush the passer. He's got a spin move, he's got a rip move, developed there. Hustle is there. He tested really well at his pro day yesterday with an elite bend. Give me Mike Green to solve that problem.
Yep, I'm good with Mike Green. I like Mike Green a lot. I think there's some character concerns. We'll see who's willing to overlook those and whatnot. The only other argument I would make is maybe Jahad Campbell. I think he's kind of a plug and play linebacker. You could stick him in that defense right now, and he could fill in, and they wouldn't miss a beat. But I think that you're probably getting more of a playmaker, game changer with Mike Green. So I'm fine with either of us.
Yep.
Yeah, don't need to add. You nailed it. So with that, moving to Arizona, who's, in my opinion, had a pretty sneaky good offseason so far. JT, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want to play Kelvin Banks inside, I think that's probably the move. I think they need interior offensive line. I think Kelvin Banks can go in and start day one for them. To me, that makes the most sense. Unless they're really high on one of the other corners, I would probably go Kelvin Banks.
So
yeah, I would second that. But Chris, what do you got?
Yeah, so I like their offseason too. Dalvin Tomlinson and Josh Sweat along that defensive line were really good signings.
Really good gets.
The one thing, and I'm very much okay with Kelvin Banks going here and then solidifying that offensive line. The one thing I will say is that they have Michael Wilson and they have Marvin Harrison Jr. at receiver. Both of those guys are more bigger-bodied receivers. So a Matthew Golden type here would be really interesting since he's that track speed guy for Texas. So kind of an interesting little wrinkle there, but I'm very much okay with Kelvin Banks going here.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, though. I think,
for sure.
Adding a different flavor to that to that room. I think that would really help kind of solidify their skill position. So I like Golden. Evan Brown. I don't know how to pronounce Froholt's first name, and then Isaiah Adams. Those are your interior three. Jonah Williams is a walking turnstile at right tackle, and Paris Johnson is still kind of growing into that. So I think I would be okay with Tyler Booker too. I really like him. Guy is just an absolute road grader, but I think we all agree Kelvin Banks is the safe bet. And we'll start there. Now we got Cincinnati Bengals, who maybe we can interest them in another receiver because YOLO.
Why not, right?
Why not? They need to get defense, and more defense. Their defense sucks. And so like we all know that's the reason why they didn't make it to the playoffs. I think they have a pretty, I think that their offensive line is serviceable. I think they have some really good skill players with the return of Gesicki, obviously signing T. Higgins and Jamar Chase long-term. Trey Hendrickson feels like an odd one to fill out. I think if it were me, I would go Jalen Walker here. I think he's the most dynamic defensive player left on the board. You can move him around quite a bit. I think giving that to your defensive coordinator is phenomenal. I also think Shamar Stewart is a guy that instantly can play or at least line up in any of your front four. And I think his RAS score was a 10, right? Wasn't he a freak of nature? Yep.
Yeah.
So I think it's hey, you know what? Trust you to mold him. He's definitely clay. He's not refined in his technique yet, but if you're going to take a risk on, which I think right now a lot of these defenders might be, maybe not as much Derek Harmon or Campbell, but I think when you really need impact, that would be where I would go. So volley to you, JT, and then Chris, take it home.
I like those options. I think that you have to keep Joe Burrow healthy, and so I would probably go with an offensive lineman. I would I kind of actually like Brisable here. I think that he can play up and down your line if you need him to play. I think his arm is maybe measured in a little bit short, but I think that you'll get a guy who can come in and play at guard right away and help keep Joe Burrow healthy. However, I'm intrigued by the Jalen Walker pick as well. I think that if you were going to go on the defensive side, I think he makes a lot of sense for that defense. There I'd go.
Yeah, Trey Henderson, they're not going to trade him, so they're going to try and work things out there, but we'll just kind of see how that goes. I think that defense has been bad since Jesse Bates moved on, that safety. And just as a thought process, Nick Umanyori, the safety out of South Carolina, he was a physical freak at the combine as well. He's come in for a visit. So I don't know if they're just trying to put him on the whiteboard and see what he knows. I like Malachi Starks a little bit better than Umanyori, but again, I'm good with Jalen Walker too. A little bit of a tweener because, as a linebacker, I think he's best going forward. So rushing the passer and shooting the gaps is where you're going to see him succeed most. But I'm good with Jalen Walker if you guys are.
Hit it.
Let's do that.
Almost there. All right. Seattle is up. I think that they can go a variety of ways. I think that they can. I think offensive line would be ideal. I think a Tyler Booker here would be really good, especially you just invested in Sam Darnold. And if that man sees one ghost, it's a wrap. And going from, I think a scheme that helped keep him upright, but you saw when it didn't. So the Lions were able to get to him, the Rams were able to get to him, and he fell apart like most of us would. Really large men tackling us and stuff. You probably get a little worried. Not JT, but that's other stuff. And so that was dumb. So I think Tyler Booker, I think that's a really solid addition and kind of, the tough mentality of being kind of a defensive first team. I like the piece that they have on defense. I think that they could use a corner, Oppo, Devon Witherspoon, but I don't think that they need anyone on defense at the current moment. Maybe a linebacker, but I think they get that later. So my vote would be Tyler Booker.
No arguments from me. I think Mike McDonald has said that they want tough players, and you're not going to find a tougher player in this draft than Tyler Booker. That guy's mean. And I love that from my guards, so sign me up for Tyler Booker. The only question I have about Tyler Booker in Seattle, they did get a new offensive coordinator in Clinton Kubiak, so he runs more of that zone gap scheme. So you need to make sure that Tyler Booker is up for that. But I love Tyler Booker. I think right here is where he needs to go.
Yeah, take Booker. The only other thing I see on occasion I like is Nick Emanwari here, just because I think he reminds people of that Cam Chancellor type of safety, and so it makes sense that people are kind of thrown out. So it is intriguing in that way. But I think that Booker's probably
I think that's a good point too with Kyle Hamilton, right? And Mike McDaniel being there and utilizing him pretty well to jump. So I think that would be that wouldn't be a bad way to go too. That he knows how to use them, and so I would like that. I would go towards offensive line just because they're just so bad. So
yeah, Booker's it.
Cool. All right, we are one away, boys. One away. So Tampa and the house that Baker built. It's not true. Chris, what do you got?
Yeah, I think the Buccaneers, they resigned Chris Godwin. They still have Mike Evans. I think that running back room with Bucky Irving and Rashad White is still good. Their tight ends are really good. So I think what you're going to do is you're going to focus more on the defense here. And I think Todd Bowles would love a Jihad Campbell here. I think that linebacker, prototypical inside linebacker, I think he would be great in a Todd Bowles system.
I'm not even going to fight that one. I think Todd Campbell was on my short list for guys who would land there, and I think that he fits exactly what I want to do. You could talk about one of the edges that's left potentially just to bring a little more firepower in the pass rush game, but I think Todd Campbell seems like an easy plug-and-play option.
I really like Campbell. I think he's a phenomenal athlete, and kind of Levante David is going to hang on just a little bit, but his play is dropping. I think that would be a nice mantle to pass along to, and they really don't have anyone. That's I think more of a glaring weakness for their defense than anything else. So I like it. Mr. Campbell, your book. All right. The pick that we've all been waiting for, number 20, the Denver Broncos. So if the board looks like this, JT, what's your general feel?
So hard, man. Like, separate like what you would think needs versus like your guys. I love Kenneth Grant. I would take Kenneth Grant in a heartbeat. He's just gonna plug up all of the holes. He's got great athleticism for a guy that size. He's between 330 and 340 at any weight. He gives me a little bit of Vince Wilfork, a little bit of Warren Sapp feel. Like, I don't know exactly where to slot him. He's maybe somewhere between those two. But I just love Warren. So I don't know that the Broncos would go that way. I also love Malachi Starks. I think, you probably don't need to make a move for your safety room today. So I know that that's the way to go. But the value, I think, is there. As this fall part of the draft board, I think, there's potential that they really value his set. He can do it. He would be a great addition to that room. Man, I struggle. I would still maybe take Colston Loveland. I just think Colston Loveland's the best pass catching tight end. I like Ingram. I'm glad they got someone, but I'm not confident that he'll be healthy. And eventually, you're going to move on from that guy. Have someone in the can or someone that be in there getting reps, then I think that's a good move. So I have mixed feelings. I wouldn't go on Hampton yet, but if someone wanted to go pitch on Hampton, I'd be open to that too. So options on the table.
Yeah, well, I echo. I do not think that they'll do this. I really like Matthew Golden here. Chris actually kind of challenged me a bit ago about, why are you pigeonholing yourself? Because a lot of the the messaging coming out of Dove Valley is we're not really looking at a receiver. I think Ben Albright said till day 3.
Sure.
So I just kind of fell in line that way, like of what I believe that they will do versus what I think that they should do. I think Matthew Golden is a more polished route runner. I don't think he's as explosive as Marvin Mims, but he's pretty damn close. I think Brandon Cooks and what Sean Payton was able to do with Brandon Cooks early on in his career gives me a little bit of an archetype in my brain for how they could use him. So kind of thinking about his addition to the room, especially next year. If they don't re-up Sutton, I think Devon Bailey kind of takes over the big guy role. You got Marvin Mims, jack of all trade, and then you have Matthew Golden, who's a phenomenal route runner as well as just a solid all-around receiver. So that would be my pick. I don't think that they'll do it, but that would be my pick. So I'm actually going to just stick to my pick. And then, so right now we got Matthew Golden, we got Colson Loveland. Chris, what do you got?
Yeah, it was disappointing to read that Albright report. Yeah. That they're not interested in receivers until day 3. I don't understand that. I think here it would be a Luther Burden, a Matthew Golden, an Abuka from Ohio State, and you let just the cream rise. If Troy Franklin ends up making a leap, great. Then you have 4 good receivers, or you can figure out what to do with Cortland Sutton, and maybe you don't have to re-sign him, but it gives you options, and I think it gives Bo Nix another weapon, which I think is important. I know Omarion Hampton has been mocked here recently with consistency, and I like Omarion Hampton, but I don't like him at 20. I think that you end up not getting the value that you want there because I have to take a running back. I was teasing you two about drafting Horny on Twitter the other day. And what I mean by that is that if you pigeonhole yourself into a position, you don't get the value that you should out of that pick. So I think that is a dangerous line to walk. So for me, I really like Malachi Starks here. But I would be happy to take one of the receivers as well. So I'm good with Matthew Golden if everybody else is. So
nice, Matthew Golden, you're a Bronco. Boom.
Even though that's not going to happen, we all have recognized that ain't going to happen. So
for sure, it'll probably be Donovan Jackson on guard or something. So with that, I'm going to pull us back just time's sake. I think we had a fun time, and it went as long as it needed to, but a little longer than we would have wanted. So you know what? The rest of the draft doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean we're however we did promise. He's talking about some of his guys. Chris, give me one or two guys, right?
Yeah, so just some of the guys that I'm higher on. To start off with, Elijah Arroyo out of Miami as a tight end. I think he's been mocked in day 3. I am very much comfortable taking him at 51 for you guys if that's what you guys want to do. Again, total seam ripper as a tight end, dynamic playmaker for Cam Ward last year. I think he's been hurt the first couple of years, which is why I don't think many people trust him. But again, dynamic player at tight end. So that would be my first one.
For sure. Doc, you got to run.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go, but I'm gonna throw a couple out there. So one of my guys is that I really like, just under the radar, is Zai Frazier, corner out of San Antonio.
Yep.
And the guy he's extremely fast going backwards, and they don't test that at the combine, but for a corner, being able to be fluid and quick in a back pedal, and then being able to close out of it, I really liked what I saw. I think maybe it looks better against lesser competition, but he has some really good traits. I think if you're able to snag him, even 3rd round, 4th round, I think you have yourself a pretty quick riser. And you saw with Quinton Mitchell that good players, especially at that position, can come from lesser schools. Mitchell from Toledo, right?
Yep.
And so, just not closing our mind off to, did you play anybody? Yeah, what I can see, it's translatable skills, that's for sure.
Older prospect too, 25.
And they hope, if bring up the guy, then you're shutting down the learning curve. Come in, give me 4 years as a CB3, CB2. I think that's a quality use of a pick.
Yep. I'll go real quick because I know you got to run. One of my favorite players in the draft is Jalen Knoll, wide receiver, Iowa State. I think a lot of people like his counterpart, but I think that he is just a edged up Jackson Jigba kind of player. He can line in the slot and get the separation. He has separation if you in the state. Like he's able to generate separation, which is that all the guys can. He's actually the fourth receiver overall. And I just think that he's being slept on a little bit. That's one of my more guys as we go along. So we appreciate you all being here. Chris, thank you again for being here. We love chatting. So we'll lots of draft day hits, but we'll be exchanging messages. So thank you.
I appreciate being here. Thank you, guys.
Of course. All right, guys, we today, but we appreciate you being out there. And if you need a sports prescription, ask a doctor.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my life.